The 1990s saw increasing student and worker protests calling on the king to introduce reforms. Progress towards constitutional reforms thus began, culminating in the introduction of the current Swazi constitution in 2005. This was despite objections from political activists. The current constitution does not clearly regulate the status of political parties. The first elections under the new constitution took place in 2008. Members of parliament are elected from 55 electoral districts, also known as Tingkundla. These MPs serve 5-year terms ending in 2013. In 2011, Swaziland experienced an economic crisis due to reduced SACU revenues. This led the government to seek loans from neighboring South Africa. However, they disagreed on the terms of the loan, including political reforms. During this period, there was increasing pressure on the Swazi government to undertake more reforms. Public protests by civil society organizations and trade unions became more common. Starting in 2012, increased SACU revenues eased fiscal pressures on the Swazi government. A new parliament, the second since the constitution was enacted, was elected on 20th September 2013. The king then reappointed Sibusiso Dlamini as prime minister for a third term. On 19th April 2018, King Mswati III announced that the Kingdom of Swaziland had changed its name to the Kingdom of Eswatini, reflecting the existing Swazi name for the state of Eswatini, to mark the 50th anniversary of Swazi independence. The new name, Eswatini, means Land of the Swazis in Swazi, and was partly intended to prevent confusion with the similarly named Switzerland. Eswatini workers began anti-government protests against low wages on 19 September 2018. They staged a 3-day strike organized by the Eswatini Trade Union Congress, TUCOSWA, resulting in widespread disruption. In late June 2021, pro-democracy protests erupted across the country, sparking riots, looting, and street clashes with police and soldiers. The civil unrest began as a result of years of anger over the lack of meaningful reforms that would move Eswatini toward democracy, as well as reports of government bans on petitions. Several buildings said to be associated with King Mswati III were burned by protesters, and police were reported to have attacked and arrested political opponents. The New York Times called the unrest in the landlocked country the most explosive civil unrest in its 53 years of independence. At least 20 people have been killed by state security forces and dozens more have been injured and detained. The government has also shut down the internet, with the compliance of mobile providers MTN and Eswatini Mobile, making it difficult to access reliable news from the country at the time. The king is also said to have fled the country, although government officials have denied the claims and called for an end to the protests. Artifacts showing human activity from the early Stone Age, about 200,000 years ago, have been found in Eswatini. Prehistoric rock art paintings, dating from about 27,000 years ago to the 19th century, can be found in various places across the country. The earliest known inhabitants of the region were the Khoisan hunter-gatherers. They were largely replaced by the Nguni during the Great Bantu migrations. These people originated in the Great Lakes region of Eastern and Central Africa. Evidence of agriculture and the use of iron dates back to about the 4th century. People who spoke the ancestral languages of Sotho and Nguni began to settle in the present-day language no later than the 11th century. Swazi settlers, 18th and 19th centuries. The Swazi settlers, who became known as the Nwane, or Bakangwane, before entering Eswatini, had settled on the banks of the Pongola River. Before that, they had settled in the Tembe River area near present-day Maputo, Mozambique. Continued conflict with Ndwandwe people pushed them further north, with Ngwane III establishing his capital at Shizilweni at the foot of the Milosheni Hills. Under Subhuzatmarne, the Nwane finally established their capital at Zambadz in the heart of present-day Eswatini. In the process, they conquered and merged the long-established clans of the country known to the Swazi as Emakanzambili, those found in front. Eswatini took its name from a later king named Mswati II. Kangwane, named for Ngwane III, was an alternative name for Eswatini, the family name of which the royal house remained Nkosi Dlamini. Nkosi literally means king. Mswati II was the greatest of Eswatini's warring kings, and he expanded the country to double its present size. The Amakanzambili clans were initially incorporated into the kingdom, with a great deal of autonomy, often including the granting of special rituals and political status. However, their degree of autonomy was drastically curtailed by Mswati, who attacked and conquered several of them in the 1850s. With his power, Mswati greatly reduced the influence of the Emakanzambili, while incorporating more people into his kingdom, either through conquest or by giving them protection. These later arrivals were known to the Swazi as the Amafikamuva. The Transvaal was granted self-government. The British High Commissioner had some governorship functions, but the Swazis administered their own reserves, and the territory was not considered a British possession. Sobhuza's formal coronation as king was in December 1921, following the regency of Labotsibeni, after which he led an unsuccessful representation to the British Privy Council, Judicial Committee in London in 1922 on the land issue. Between 1923 and 1963, Sobhuza II established the Swazi Commercial Amadoda, which would license small businesses on Swazi reserves, and also established the Swazi National School to counter mission dominance in education. Its stature grew over time, and the Swazi royal leadership successfully resisted the weakening of British administrative power and the possible incorporation of Swaziland into the Union of South Africa. A constitution for an independent Swaziland was promulgated by the British in November 1963 under terms that established a legislative and executive council. This development was opposed by the Swazi National Council, Likoko Raja. Despite such opposition, general elections took place, and the first Swazi Legislative Council was formed on 9 September 1964. By 1964, the area of the country reserved for Swazi occupation had increased to 56%. Changes to the original constitution proposed by the Legislative Council were accepted by the British, and a new constitution, providing for a House of Assembly and a Senate, was drafted. Elections under this constitution were held in 1967. Independence. 1968 present. After the 1967 general election, Swaziland was a protected state until independence was regained in 1968. After the 1973 general election, Swaziland's constitution was suspended by King Sobhuza II, who then ruled the country by decree until his death in 1982. By that time, Sobhuza II had been king of Swaziland for almost 83 years, making him the longest reigning monarch in history. A regency followed his death, with Queen Regent Zeliwe Shangwi as head of state until 1984, when she was removed by Lekoko and replaced by Queen Mother Ntfambi Tufwala. Mswati III, Ntfambi's son, was crowned king on 25 April 1986 as King Ngwenyama of Swaziland.